Welcome to the Ask Chris Real Estate Podcast with Chris Phillips from Keller Williams. A successful 20-year veteran in the Middle Tennessee real estate market with over 100 five-star reviews, Chris is known for his knowledge and integrity. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or just curious, his insight will guide you along the way.
Welcome to the show today. Today we're going to be talking about home inspections. Earlier this month of September, I went and put a contract on a new investment property and did a home inspection on it, and almost didn't do a home inspection because I knew the property prior to putting it under contract. I had previously sold this one before to a client, and I was purchasing it back from them. So I knew the history of this property and knew it really well. And I have two other properties in the same subdivision. So I went ahead and did a home inspection just because that's what I'm supposed to do. So I called 840 home inspectors. They came out, looked at the property, and as we're going through the property, I realized a couple of things. The seller was not ready for me to do the home inspection. Well, that's because this was a renter, and the renter just wasn't there for the day. They knew we were coming. They gave us the code to access the property, and when we accessed the property, there were some things that were missing that if I hadn't have been there would have shown up in this home inspection and would have been red flags for a potential buyer. And I want to talk today a little bit about how we can avoid those things if you are a seller getting ready to sell your property when you're looking at getting a home inspection. So if you do these things beforehand, you're going to have a much better success in not having to do little nitpicky things that are going to cause you a lot of anxiety and also a lot of time when you're under the pressure of getting to the closing table. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, doing the little things. Replacing burned out bulbs. I can't tell you how many times I have been to a home inspection and the inspector flips on a switch and the light doesn't work. And it's primarily because of bulb. They have to put this on their report. They're going to say, seek a professional, and they're going to say, have an electrician look at it. And because we're seasoned agents, we most of the time tell our buyers, hey, let's see if we replace the bulbs, and ask the seller to replace the bulbs first to see if it's just a burned out bulb or if we need to replace the fixture. Another thing is making sure all your smoke alarms have updated batteries in them and that they're working properly, making sure that's going to work. Putting fresh new air filters in your AC units, making sure those are done. Looking under all of your vanities and under your kitchen sink to make sure there's no leaks. Make sure that they can easily access and observe the pipes under the vanities. Making sure all your doorknobs are tight and the handles and hinges are closing correctly like they should. And a big one, especially for properties that are vacant, is making sure the utilities are on. Especially when the property is vacant, there's a lot of time the seller will cut the utilities off, not realizing that they're going to have to turn them back on during the inspection period. And then we talk about, major system reviews. Now, these are the things that are going to cost you a lot of money if they need repair or to be replaced. The first one is roof. They're going to observe the roof, usually from a drone. They might get a ladder and walk up on top of the roof. They might also view it from down with some other mechanism to view it. So they're looking for or missing shingles, any boots that are cracked or damaged, or any hail damage that they see. If you might possibly have any of those things, you might want to look at that before you have the home inspection. Plumbing, as we talked about earlier, making sure the sinks and tubs, drains are draining properly, that they're not taking a longer time to drain. If you have drains that are maybe have hair in them or have an obstruction in them, you might want to clear those out before the home inspection. Doing routine HVAC work. And all of my properties, whether they're rental properties or the property I actually live in, we do seasonal HVAC maintenance on them. So that means in the spring and in the fall, we have a maintenance crew go out there and they clean the coils. They make sure everything's running properly. They clean out all the drain lines so that the drain lines are cleaned out. And we do that twice a year. And if you have that paperwork, leave that on the kitchen table or the kitchen counter so that they can view that stuff. The inspector can have it, and let the seller agent know that prior to them coming there so they can be prepared for that. Now, this one snuck up on me. I recently had a house that we had inspected, and it was a pristine house. This house was so well maintained, it was immaculate. However, there was one thing that I did not see because I had not crawled under this in the crawl space, and it had moisture in the crawl space. Now you think, whoa, that's a big red flag. Here in Tennessee, condensation on the HVAC unit underneath is going to cause some condensation in the crawl space during June and July, and depending on how hot it is. With this house, some of the insulation underneath had dropped down too, and those items were noted on the inspection, and we had to take care of them, and it made the buyer nervous, and the buyer almost walked because of it. So paying attention to those things prior to going underneath the house, making sure everything looks good there, it's clean, dry, and well maintained underneath the house is important. And then decluttering the house. And this brings me to what happened in my home inspection. Everything went really well for the home that I'm purchasing for an investment property. My inspector came in and he said, Chris, I noticed that there's some water coming down out of the house, and it's draining down through the foundation. And this was a slab, so he noticed it behind the vinyl, and it was coming out and it was hitting down on the slab. He goes, I think there might be a leak in the wall. So we went to the other side of the wall, and it was in the garage, and where the spot was that we thought the leak might be at was covered up with boxes, and you could not see the wall. Now, if this seller had been prepped prior to, you would have had access to around the hot water heater and to this wall, because there's some piping on this wall that would need to be addressed or looked at to make sure it's not leaking. When we removed those boxes, the whole wall was black. It had black mold and just fungus all on the drywall. And I call it black mold, but quite frankly, the only way you know that it's black mold is if you test it. But it was a dark fungus on the drywall, and it was an active leak. And we would have missed that had we not moved the boxes. Now, if I had not been there, if I had not known this seller, those boxes would not have been moved. The inspector would have noted, hey, I can't access the hot water heater area due to the fact that there's obstructions there, and he can't legally move those things. And this item would have been missed, and this would have probably cost me $5,000 to $6,000 to repair. But because I knew the seller and we were able to move the boxes and we were able to find this spot, we could ask the seller to repair that item. And obviously they were willing to take care of that because it was an active, ongoing thing. So this is why it's brought me to this podcast today, because I wanted to bring this up because, for doing this for 19, almost going on in 20 years, I have made the mistake of not telling my sellers, hey, empty out your vanities, make it easy accessible under the sinks, make it accessible to all the mechanical items like the electrical box, the hot water heater, any HVAC mechanical items, so that the inspector can do their job and do it well. And plus, this might expose some things that you didn't know about, just like in the crawl space, just opening it up and looking in there just to make sure that it looks normal and it looks like it's supposed to. Just taking those precautions is going to make your life easier when you go to sell your house. It's going to give the buyer a much better feeling about purchasing the house and moving forward, and you're going to avoid uncostly repairs or any anxiety that you're going to have to do to overcompensate to make the buyer want to move forward. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today. So just make sure you get with your real estate agent, and if you're listing with me, obviously I'm going to bring that up. And if you have any other questions about home inspections or buying or selling properties, just give me a call or to my link below, and Kelly and I will be happy to help you. Chris with the Phillips Group.
For answers to all your real estate questions, ask Chris at the Phillips Group, Murfreesboro, Tennessee.